Welcome to the Top 100 2021, PC Gamer's hand-picked list of the best PC games available right now.
I hope I can trust you with this.
Whether you're a veteran of the pastime or brand new to the world of gaming, these are the games that need to be on your radar. From recent blockbusters to genre-bending indies to all-time PC classics. And, like last year, there are a lot of new names on the PCG team contributing to this updated list. To showcase the goods and give you a look at why right now is the best time to be playing on PC, we've got some insightful testimonials from the team, starting with something synonymous with PC gaming.
PC Gamer Top 100, Football Manager 66. So yes, in a comfortable mid-table position comes the Football Manager series. This season has seen the global footballing sensation crash into the PC Gamer Top 100 for the first time, in a pretty decent position of 66. And being an Englishman and a soccer fan, that number also has a special significance for me. Though, honestly not as significant as my long-term relationship with Football Manager itself. Which is probably something many an FM fan will say about the franchise too, because despite it historically being a PC-specific game, a huge number of Football Manager players won't actually identify as PC gamers. For those people, Football Manager might just be the only game they actually play. Their laptops may just be for emails, Amazon, and long nights playing Football Manager. It's almost like it's more than just a game. Despite what the naysayers will tell you about it purely being a glorified spreadsheet, they're completely missing the point. If Football Manager hasn't got into your bones already, then sure, you may well just look at the screenshots and see a dry as dust football game where you never even get to kick a ball. But it's like a sporting version of The Sims, with you marshalling and developing your little computer people to kick a ball about better than other little computer people, mixed with the long-term grand strategy and legacy creation of Crusader Kings, all wrapped up in a heart-wrenching RPG about success, failure, heroism, the fragility of youth, lost potential, and the inevitable decay of our own corporeal forms. And much like a great tabletop RPG, you get out of it what you put into it. Which isn't to say that you necessarily have to dress up in a sharp suit should you manage to get into the final of a prestigious cup competition, or munch on oranges at half time, or carry out post-match interviews in front of the bathroom mirror. But you might well do. There is no other game like Football Manager, and that extends beyond the boundaries of the software itself. No other simulation in gaming history has anywhere near the same direct impact on the world it's imitating as Football Manager. There are countless instances of actual professional football managers using the game's incredibly detailed database in place of their own expensive scouting system, just to get a bead on their next multi-million-pound player purchase. The fake game is just so heavily intertwined with the real game, and Football Manager is as much a part of football as football is a part of Football Manager. Football, football, football.
Clocking in at number 60 is Loop Hero, an indie darling from this year that's part roguelike and part idle game. And don't be put off by Loop Hero's impenetrable seeming aesthetic. It's one of the most accessible games that we've played in 2021. Its simplistic 8-bit style belies an absorbing adventure that's wonderfully easy to start and pretty brutal to master. The whole game takes place on a single loop that your hero walks around automatically, fighting monsters that they encounter along the way. As the player, you modify the map on the fly by placing terrain tiles that have different effects on the world. Because nothing on the map really changes unless you place more tiles, every run is only as hard as you make it. Adding more graveyards to your path means fighting more skeletons, but it could also mean a powerful weapon drop or other helpful loot. And as each loop ends, you can decide: take your loot and run, or brave another lap around the map. Loop Hero is so clearly steeped in nostalgia, but it's so different from many of the outwardly nostalgia-based games that we see. It isn't a one-to-one recreation of an old-style game like Doom or Stardew Valley. Instead, it resurrects the spiritual aspects of the late 80s VGA era, with a subtler sense of mystery found in some games from that time. It's most fun if you avoid doodling your way to victory. Instead, try engaging in the kinds of school lunchroom rumors with a friend who's also playing it, trading stories about how you can summon harpies into the map by building a mountain, or the ridiculous thing that you have to do to get a secret boss to spawn. It's fun.
We've been betrayed! Chivalry 2's lighthearted multiplayer earns its spot number 58 in our top 100 this year. On the one hand, this is a brutal medieval combat game where decapitation comes quickly. Chivalry's slow, technical fighting system tests your manipulation of distance and timing with an expansive set of weapons. But on the other hand, it's also a video game where you can kill someone with a fish, a pitchfork, or a recorder. Yeah, like the flute we were all issued on the first day of 2nd grade. It's a special competitive game that can balance serious, hand-to-hand fighting with this kind of slapstick comedy. Some maps have you temporarily taking the role of a wimpy peasant. Any weapon you throw will stick itself in the side of your enemy, from a dagger to a two-handed executioner's axe. There's a whole button dedicated to calling for the death of archers, who are essentially the cowardly lower caste of chivalry. And I mean, screw those guys, for the record. That mixture of barbaric combat and farce makes a multiplayer game that is as close to toxicity-proof that I've ever played. I dare you to get mad while playing Chivalry 2. Unlike CSGO, Rainbow Six, or any number of other competitive games, I usually just end up laughing when I get my head chopped off. And that's because Chivalry 2 isn't a game about balance or fairness. It's about the calamity and fun of facing down 3 knights in an unfair fight and somehow walking away, and then smiling and shrugging it off when a ballista pegs your body against the castle wall. More competitive multiplayer games could learn from that.
Genshin Impact is a new entry in the PC Gamer Top 100 this year, bursting in at number 56. If you've somehow missed the hype, Genshin Impact is a free-to-play open-world action RPG set in a vibrant fantasy world. The combat centres around combining the different elements of your party members to set off devastating elemental reactions to demolish your enemies. But it's not all about the combat, there's a decent story to get stuck into as well. You, the main character, who is one of 2 twins, has been unceremoniously dropped into the strange land, and you've become separated from your sibling in the process. The world you find yourself in isn't without its troubles either. You'll soon be unravelling plots within the various lands, and even befriending gods. Luckily, you'll find allies to help you out as you start your adventure, and you'll soon discover that the world is packed with places to explore and puzzles to solve. You can climb pretty much anything too, and the wing glider you get early on makes it a breeze to get back down again. That said, picking up new playable characters or even the best weapons to equip them with is tied to a gacha system. But you'll get a few characters naturally as the story progresses, and thankfully, Genshin is perfectly playable without forking out any real-life cash. The game's frequent updates introduce new playable characters, additional story quests, and limited time events, so there never feels like there's a shortage of things to do and places to explore. 2 entire regions have already been added, Liyue and most recently Inazuma with the 2.0 update. If you have a fondness for JRPGs and enjoy the busyness of MMOs, Genshin Impact is well worth a look.
Watch your step! Show me what you've got!
So this year's PC Gamer Top 100 has seen The Sims 4 take a steep plummet to the painfully average position of 42, which also happens to be pretty close to the number of how many expansion packs, game packs, stuff packs, and kits there are in the game now. Don't get me wrong, I love The Sims 4. I mean, I feel like it's come such a long way since its 2014 launch, which was not great. I mean, that didn't even have the pool tool included, which was literally in the first game from day one. But Maxis has really done a steady job of making improvements over the years, even if things still aren't perfect. The build mode is straight up fantastic, it's the best it's ever been, and creating a sim has never been so easy while still being incredibly customizable. And I feel like after 21 years, Maxis is finally getting the hang of making consistently good expansion packs. Recent packs like Cottage Living, Paranormal Stuff, and Dream Home Decorator have been bringing some really high quality furniture and clothing items into the game. And there's been an ongoing effort with updates to the base game for things like making sure that darker skin tones and different hair textures are up to scratch with the rest of the game standards, which is always deeply appreciated. But honestly, I kind of wanted this game to fall from grace this year. All of the work put into making The Sims 4 good is just massively overshadowed by how high the financial barrier to entry is these days. The base game on its own is not great, and you'll be paying an awful lot of money for the simplest of features. Like, The Sims has somehow managed to nail down a formula whereby they can make you pay $40 for something as simple as the weather, and we're just okay with that. It does make it really hard for me to root for the game or recommend it to friends when I'm essentially asking them to dump hundreds of dollars into things like pretty virtual clothes or extra basic gameplay mechanics. It's not so bad if you've been slowly building up your collection of expansion packs over the years, but it can be really difficult coming to the game as a newcomer these days. The way I look at it is that you could buy a lot of the games in our top 100 list for the same price as a Sims 4 collection, and that just doesn't sit right with me. The Sims 4, you are fantastic and I love you, but you're just a little too expensive these days, and that's one of the reasons why this game has dropped down so many places this year.
Counter-Strike Global Offensive comes in clutch at number 38, no change. The big kahuna, the king, the most popular FPS on the planet. Counter-Strike stands on the shoulders of arguably the most successful mod of all time, and nearly a decade after release maintains player counts and a vibrant competitive scene that other games can only dream of. Competitive play remains at the heart of CSGO's appeal, but around this is its mod heritage and particularly the community map-making scene, while Valve's secretive crack squad of SAS developers continue to add and tweak without ever messing with what makes it great. These days you can warm up with a 2v2 game of Wingman, as well as all the old favourites of Deathmatch, Danger Zone, and various other ways to shoot people in the head, before gearing up for Premiere mode, because we aren't going on a windy walk here. The likes of Siege or Valorant have tempted me away for a time, but I always come back to Counter-Strike. The competition is full of gadgets and powers and classes, but CSGO's absolute purity and dedication to the principles of good aim and controlled movement have that magic formula. Easy to understand, but with an unfathomably high skill ceiling. You don't have to be a teenager with the reflexes of a mountain cat to be good at Counter-Strike. Learning how to play, how to outthink your opponents, and how to grab any advantage you can matters just as much. Counter-Strike Global Offensive may be dated in some respects, but this is a game in probably the healthiest state it has ever been. There's nothing like the thrill of that competitive match countdown, the brief loading screen, your team gathered together, ready to go, and one simple question. Are we rushing in, or are we going sneaky beaky like?
Oh, what a momentous day when I managed finally to convince the PC Gamer team to include Hunt Showdown in the top 100, and at position number 28 no less. You might be wondering why Hunt Showdown has only now made its way onto our top 100, many years after it first launched. Well, the reason for that is this PvEVP shooter has only gone from strength to strength in 2021. It's been gradually incorporating steady updates and improvements over its lifetime, but more recently, Crytek has released an immeasurably entertaining new map and event. Now, I've waxed lyrical plenty already about the new Desal map, but the long and short of it is the new map has already fulfilled my childhood desire to live out a saloon shootout, jaunty piano tune and all. And since then, I've engaged in a furious firefight down a mine, out of the broken down windows of a hilltop church, and through the unfinished bow of a ship. So what more could you ask for? Even more fundamentally though, Hunt Showdown is, and always has been, a wildly tactical shooter, one that captures the deadly and unforgiving nature of a turn-of-the-century shootout like no other. You'll be ducking behind boxes and barrels with bullets whizzing overhead in no time when you first start, and before long you'll be laying traps in wait for enemy players, like I am in this clip right here. Even when you're not in a nail-bitingly intense duel with another player, you'll be crawling through swamps and rail yards trying not to awaken the ghastly fauna. Hunt Showdown is a game that rewards good teamwork and strategy though, so if you've got a couple of friends to play with, that's absolutely the best way to experience the game. Luckily, it will also run great on heaps of hardware, so it shouldn't pose an issue for most PC gamers. With that in mind, Gather your posse, collect your 6-shooter, and ready your dynamite because Hunt Showdown is pretty likely the best multiplayer shooter you've never played.
Total War Warhammer 2 is number 23 in our top 100. I like the strategy layer in Total War games, the turn-based part of the series where you manage your nations and cities, build up your death stack armies, and march them back and forth across the map, and try to understand what's going on with the diplomacy.
I'm sure your little message will be most interesting.
But the things I remember most from my Warhammer campaigns happened on the battlefield, in the real-time bit, where you cycle charge Ghost Knights into infantry, or press the insert button to take over a Goblin Doom Diver and catapult a green guy wearing a spiky helmet directly into the enemy. Playing as a faction of Mad Science Ratman, I've dragged away the corpse of my enemy's leader under arrow fire so I could experiment on it later, and as the Vampire Pirates, I've summoned a ghost ship to drop on people, and giant crabs to attack them. I did that while playing as an undead opera singer named Silostra Diafin, who pronounces her surname with a flourish as Diafar, like our Warhammer version of Hyacinth Bouquet from 1990 sitcom Keeping Up Appearances. Warhammer's fantasy setting makes Total War ridiculous, extravagant, and, compared to the historical games in the series, pretty extra. It's great, not just because I remember highlights from across all those different campaigns, but because the gonzo factions make multiple campaigns worth playing. The base game comes with lizards who ride dinosaurs, and elves who put fortresses on the back of sea dragons, and then every new expansion adds more oddities, like the goblins whose leader is on a quest for new and exotic cooking ingredients as if he's a TV chef filming an unusually violent special. The Total War Warhammer games can be connected together, bringing all the factions from the previous one in as well. It would be too much, but Warhammer has always been maximalist, and too much is exactly how it should be.
Number 22 of the top 100 PC games is Halo: The Master Chief Collection. Though I think we could have bumped it up a little to number 20, that would actually be a nice bit of symmetry with Halo turning 20 years old this year. When I was in high school, which is almost that far back, my best friend got a new gaming PC over the summer. This was summer 2004. I had actually never played games on a gaming PC. I'd only just played on, whoever's family computer, and we never had dedicated graphics cards. So it was exciting, and we spent an entire summer taking turns playing Halo 1 on PC, these epic capture the flag matches on servers where people would just hop in and out for hours and hours. And, they're probably my favorite PC gaming memories ever to this day. So when Halo games stopped coming to the PC, I just got an Xbox and started playing them there. So I know Halo started on the Xbox, but for me, it was really a PC experience first, though the pistol was seriously out of control with the mouse. But the Master Chief Collection has finally made Halo as a PC series a reality. This is easily the definitive collection of all these classic games, with pretty much the entire Halo series under one roof. With Halo 1, 2, 3, 4, Reach, and ODST all in one bundle, it's kind of absurd how much game there is here. And of course you can go play the campaign, which you can do online and co-op, but there's also all the multiplayer through matchmaking and custom games and supplementary modes too. Since porting Master Chief Collection to PC, the developers have been really good about weighing the community feedback, going back to fix little inconsistencies with the aiming or the graphics, something like that. And they're even now integrating a server browser for bringing back some of those classic CTF memories that I have from so long ago. If you ask me though, the absolute best thing about the Master Chief Collection being on PC is that I can play Rocket Race again. It's this absurd mode from Halo 3 where you're trying to drive around to these waypoints on the map and everybody's invincible, so you're just shooting them with a rocket launcher trying to send them careening off course. If the Master Chief Collection is around for another 20 years, I have a feeling I'll still be playing Rocket Race whenever the playlist comes up.
It's so hard. Fuck out. Shoot him.
Tearing in at number 19, it's Umurangi Generation. Loud, raw, and angry, this urban photography sandbox is an anti-colonial protest wrapped in jet set radio and Evangelion. Packing a handheld film camera, you're tasked with filling out photo bounties, making ends meet, and finding art, even as the whole world comes tumbling down. Oof, but what a camera it is. Umurangi's knackered shutterbox is wonderfully tactile, lenses swapping in and out with satisfying clicks, flashbulbs humming after each shot. It's the kind of thing I want to pull out and bring into other game worlds. You know, maybe start snapping around City 17 or one of No Man's Sky's quintillion planets. But as it stands, Taronga's no bad place to be stuck with it. See, Umurangi may not sport Hitman 3's complex AI routines, but every level feels just as grounded. Rooftop parties and bustling subway stations hum with life. Every candid snap of a stranger tells a story of some deadbeat dad, VR-addled waster, or bloodied mech pilot just trying to make their way through this deeply relatable apocalypse. See, Umurangi might take place in a world full of giant robots duking it out with squid-like kaiju, but its tensions are our tensions. Developed by Maori artist Veselikov, Umurangi is scathing of the global response to the Australian wildfires the other year, the word Umurangi itself meaning red sky in the developer's native tongue. An occupying force pulls your neighbours and friends up to fight their war, and oppresses people with curfews and giant concrete walls. Creating art in this world is a scream against colonial intervention and ignorance. And that tone becomes impossible to ignore once the game's macro DLC rolls in. Umurangi's final stages make the games industry's fretting over being seen as political look like abject cowardice. By the climax, you're stepping into scenes pulled straight out of recent worldwide protests, walled, plastered, and familiar slogans that shout at the player as much as the in-fiction oppressors. That macro closes the loop on Jet Set Radio with spray cans and roller skates feels somewhat apt, cranking that game's anti-authoritarian themes into overdrive. Umurangi Generation is an unabashed, unashamed, unforgiving piece of protest art, and it's one of the most important games in recent years because of it.
Number 10, Valheim. There are no real quests in Viking survival game Valheim. There are no characters except for a talking crow and a dwarf that sells you a fishing rod, and there's no real storyline either. In a big, randomly generated open world, you craft weapons and gear, fight monsters, explore, build a home, and survive. But every journey I take, whether it's to fight a boss, or reach a new continent, or just to gather berries, feels like a bigger and bolder adventure than most AAA RPGs offer. Setting out for the very first time on a tiny raft across the ocean and into the unknown is burned into my brain as a thrilling and harrowing experience, even though literally nothing bad happened along the way. And even though I've done it dozens of times since in bigger and sturdier ships, sailing across the ocean is still a thrill. The open world of Valheim is amazingly beautiful despite the game's throwback graphics, a blend of pixelated textures and simple models, alongside modern lighting and particle effects. And the danger of the wilderness is offset by the cozy and comforting feeling of coming home to my safe little wooden fort, and spending hours just puttering around, farming turnips, and cooking in the kitchen. Valheim cleverly plays with survival systems too. Food remains absolutely vital to survival, but you'll never starve to death, so gathering never feels like a joyless grind. And it's one of the few games where I equally enjoy playing on my own, as dangerous as that can be, or gathering a group of friends and going on a co-op adventure together. It's just as much fun solo as with partners. And for an early access game, it never feels like anything is missing in Valheim, just that more could be added.
Our number 8 spot in the PC Gamer Top 100 is Minecraft. which has jumped an epic 40 places up the ranking since last year's list, and rightfully so. It's been over a decade since Minecraft first released on PCs, but the blocky sandbox continues to be a powerhouse of creativity thanks to Mojang's bulky updates and the incredible worlds that sprout up from the community. I was sure Mojang had pulled out all the stops when they gave Minecraft's underworld a hellish makeover in last year's Nether update, but this year is just as exciting. The upcoming Caves and Cliffs update will bring a whole new roster of blocks, items and creatures to the game's mountain and cave biomes. We've already had the first part of the update, which included Minecraft's best mob to date, which was the adorable axolotl, and part 2 should be out later this year, treating us to lush caves, snowy peaks, and the deep dark, a biome not for the faint of heart. Minecraft got its biggest glow up ever in 2020 with Nvidia's ray tracing patch, and Mojang is still exploring its potential this year. Minecraft has always had its fair share of dramatic shaders and texture packs, but Minecraft RTX took the game's visuals to a whole other glossy level. Who could have foreseen that Minecraft's humble blocks would be leading the next generation of graphical overhauls? As Mojang continues to release updates, the Minecraft community is still as busy and creative as ever. For a game essentially about placing blocks, Minecraft certainly has inspired a whole generation of players, from passionate kids to an industry of professional builders. There's always something new to explore, and projects like the Uncensored Library, the work from charity Block by Block, and hundreds of other initiatives prove that Minecraft is a gaming force for good. Minecraft continues to break its concurrent player count each year, and with Mojang trying to bulk up the game's reach with new games and projects, the sandbox shows no signs of slowing down.
The conniving Crusader Kings 3 has usurped the third spot in our top 100 games list, and rightly so. It's simply the best strategy game around, and it would probably be the best RPG around if it wasn't for Disco Elysium. Everything that made its predecessor so great for nearly a decade is here, but better integrated, more refined, and improved by a whole bunch of new systems that make this sequel feel like more than a repeat. It's huge and dense, and when you're first faced with a mountain of menus, pop-ups, and a list of thousands of nobles, some of whom might be plotting to kill you, it can be pretty intimidating. Paradox has made great strides when it comes to making its soapy strategy game more accessible, however, including plenty of nested tooltips and a whole system dedicated to giving you some direction. This doesn't mean it gets in the way of your plans, it's still a pure sandbox. Now it's just a sandbox that's always ready to suggest ideas if you're lost. Follow its advice and you'll see the game slowly unfurl before you, revealing its complex systems one by one. A marriage here, a murder plot there, you'll be immersed in the drama and intrigue in no time. After just a few hours with the game, you'll walk away with enough stories to fill a book, like the time you walked into your bedroom and found a courtier having sex with your shoe, or when you accidentally lost a child in the woods when you realised they were about to cause a succession crisis. Thanks, bears! Paradox is currently working away on its first proper expansion, Royal Court, and if it's anything like its predecessor, we can expect it to be well supported with DLC for years. But it's in a much stronger position than Crusader Kings 2, with fewer obvious gaps. I'm excited about what's next, but this is already the Crusader Kings I want.
Sneaking into the number 2 position of the PC Gamer Top 100, it's Hitman 3. This is the finale to IO Interactive's World of Assassination trilogy, and so at this point you should know what to expect. You play as 47, a genetically enhanced clone turned professional assassin who plays dress up in order to cross a level undetected and kill his target. IO has been making Hitman games for 21 years now, so the fundamentals are pretty finely honed. Missions feature complex webs of security and patrols, the NPCs moving and interacting in an elegant dance of activity. Your job is to subtly disrupt the pattern, giving yourself just enough space to get through without being noticed. Or you can abandon subtlety altogether and just embrace chaos. where 2016's Hitman was about introducing a slicker, more streamlined direction for the series, and Hitman 2 took things a step further with some of the largest sandboxes in its history, Hitman 3 is more confident and experimental. You'll solve a murder mystery in an English estate, or turn a cat and mouse hunt on its head in an underground club in Berlin, and you'll enjoy a darkly comic tour of an Argentinian winery with a variety of fatal twists. And so yes, this is another great collection of Hitman levels, but Hitman 3 wouldn't enter so highly on the list if not for the fact that it's also the de facto hub for the entire World of Assassination trilogy. If you buy the access passes for the previous games, you gain access to all three in a single package. Do so and Hitman 3 becomes easily one of the largest, most complete stealth games in the history of the genre. The sheer breadth of stuff to do across the full trilogy is absurd. Each of its 21 destinations features not just the showcase mission, but also a selection of increasingly absurd side objectives, challenges and DLC extras, like the version of Sapienza that's been transformed into a film set, or the many escalation protocol missions that become more difficult each time you complete them. One of my favourites of these escalation missions is set in Paris, and it asks you to kill a variety of targets using a battle axe. A weapon so big that you can't hide it, meaning that every guard will detect you instantly if you're carrying it around, because you shouldn't be doing that. I spent hours just trying to figure out the optimum patrol route to get to my target without even being spotted, made harder by the fact that the level also doesn't let you pacify any of the NPCs. Basically, Hitman 3 is Hitman in its ultimate form. It's the best version of the best stealth series around, packed with enough stuff to keep you exploring its sandboxes for months, even years to come.
Mission complete. Well done, 47.
And now, a look back at some of the games who are missing from this list this year.
Show me the water where I drowned last year. When I see that river, yeah, I see you. And I see myself drowning in tears. God, my lungs want to explode and rip me into once again. Wear your lies around your hips, draw them out and shoot me until I can't stand. But you blind, can you not see? Tortured and heartbroken man, and I'd run for miles.
The smell is repulsive. It pushes in from your mouth. More instant and more familiar than anything you'd expected. More fever than odor. It fills your mind, flushing you from within.
Here we are again, hungover, missing our clothes, missing our memories, but the one thing we do still recall is Disco Elysium is a brilliant, singular RPG, and so it once again takes the top spot in our top 100 games list. There's still nothing like it, though I suspect we'll start seeing imitators soon, and who wouldn't want to imitate this? A detective yarn that rewrites the rules of RPGs, which eschews combat even if you do have a gun, and instead keeps all of its drama and tension in its incredible text. Everywhere it plays with expectations, turning simple skill checks into elaborate internal monologues where the voices in your head paint a vivid picture of the detective you're becoming. And if you fail them, you could die, the victim of a deadly ceiling fan, a heart attack, or depression.
One moment you're running like the wind, then you've suddenly turned around and are giving him the finger, furiously, with both hands. Why?
There are laughs in abundance, but even more moments of bleak, existential dread. And since launch, this exceptional RPG has only grown more powerful and evocative, with an even deeper exploration of the complex politics that make up the city of Revachol, elevated by the addition of full voice acting.
No, you have sustained a trauma to your lower neck.
It's a real treat, and a great excuse to put on your hideous necktie and become a detective once again.
I've returned to Revachol since Disco Elysium topped the top 100 last year, and I have to say I'm altogether smitten once again. Exceptional voice acting only makes this game that much more inviting for a replay. Plus, I've lost all impulse to play the good guy, and instead I'm leaning fully into a communist brute that intends to smash his way to the culprit, or twist his own thought process until it doesn't matter who he points the finger at. So long as they're against the people, they're guilty of something. That's probably why I find myself gravitating back towards Disco Elysium on a regular basis. You become some version of this down-and-out cop twisted by your own decisions as a player, and often bleak ones that continue to haunt you until the credits roll. It's truly an RPG for RPG heads too, and as much as I'm excited to play it, and whatever Zaum thinks up next, I'm also pumped to see who it inspires next.
In most RPGs, I'm always fretting about making the right choice in any given situation, whether that's to get the best ending or save a particular character, but I never thought about doing that in Disco Elysium. One of the things that Disco does so brilliantly is make bad dice rolls fun. Like when you're such a bad cop that you puke while trying to investigate a body, or when you injure yourself by trying to lift a barbell off the ground to show off for some reason. In conversations, you can choose to listen to one of your inner voices and just blurt out something dramatic or threatening or drug frenzied in the middle of a conversation, and most of the time that doesn't fit into that usual RPG flowchart of finding the right dialogue decision to progress. It's a lot more naturalistic than that, so characters will just react to you being a total weirdo. Disco really embraces you putting your foot in your mouth at every turn, and then it makes the joke even better when one of your inner voices gives you shit for doing something stupid.
Kill him. Kill him now. He won't see death coming.